We're here on Sunday, April 24th, with St. Mary's Commissioner John O'Connor, who has filed to run in the Republican primary for Sheriff of St. Mary's County. There are 3 candidates. He is one of 3. John has won 2 elections as County Commissioner in 2014 and 2018. Now, John, would you explain why you're running for Sheriff?
This agency and the county deserves new, bold, and trustworthy leadership. It's something that I've looked at for a long time as a county commissioner. I've watched the budgets, I have the experience, and I want to make sure that the people of this county get the service that they deserve, and the violent crime and the traffic fatalities are handled, because they're, quite frankly, out of control.
Lexington Park is experiencing just nothing but crime and decline, going on for years now, getting worse in the past year, and yet you as a commissioner and your board, you funded a $6 million deputies restroom on Great Mills Road. Is it having any effect on cutting down crime?
No, the Sheriff's Department building, the District 4 station that's down there, the building itself is not having the effect. It's not fully staffed. It's not being treated as a district police station. Rather it's being treated as a community policing building.
Okay, what is community policing in layman's language? What does it mean?
It's building bridges with the community. It's solving problem of quality of life issues that we're dealing with, and other types of smaller crimes. Working with community groups to try and solve the crimes before they happen, and getting ahead of that. Building the relationships that normal officers are not building on a day-to-day basis while they're running from call to call.
Okay, well, if your goal is to expand community policing, why do you need a building there to do it when? You know, you got the whole town to do it in.
Well, absolutely. The goal, at least from the commissioner's point of view, when we went and put forth the programs for district-based policing, was to have officers, and working with the Sheriff's Department, to have officers that are identified at those districts. So rather than just having one headquarter, the district-based headquarters and community policing, the goal of the commissioners and working with the Sheriff's Department was not just to have a centralized headquarters, but have a Sheriff's Department that was placed throughout the county, ran operations out of those different places in the county, and put more officers all over the community on a regular basis. You don't need an entire headquarters for a community policing program. In fact, historically, that's not how it's done. Those different officers work out of different districts and work with the patrol officers and the command staff that's located there to solve the problems of that particular community based on the geography, the culture, and other factors that go into it. The north end of the county is way different than the south end of the county, and that's how you have to look at it from community policing.
Well, was it a mistake to lease space for a district station in California?
Now, I do believe that was important due to the Criminal Investigations Division and the cramped space within the Sheriff's Department headquarters. However, again, it's all about the application of how that building is being used. If it's used appropriately, I think it could be a high value to the community.
There's been a number of incidents where deputies have been allowed to resign when they're under investigation. What is that all about? Is it more of the good old boys club, or are these serious offenses?
I believe so. Each case is different. I'm not aware of every single one, but I am familiar with some of them. And in those instances, all the names link together, and you can find that those in particular command positions have been able to go ahead and leave the agency under a veil or a cloud and still walk away with their retirement.
When you were elected commissioner in 2014, there came a time during the public hearings that the assistant sheriff, Major John Horn, came over and criticized you directly and the budget, and really blew up at the county commissioner board. You were elected by the voters to determine what that budget would be. What would you do if elected sheriff and one of your people came to a county commissioners meeting and challenged the right of the voters to select county commissioners?
Well, one thing I wouldn't have to do is wait for a county commissioner or a citizen to file a complaint. If I was sitting there, I would have took immediate action on that member of my agency. That was an absolute discredit to the agency, the badge that they wear, and the decorum of the meeting. Unfortunately, I had to file a complaint for the Sheriff's Department to take any action, which was mediocre at best, because of the high level rank of that individual.
What action did they take?
I was actually never apprised of the action, and they never got back to me. I know that they took an investigation, and I was interviewed by deputies from another agency across the state, but I was never given the actual outcome.
Okay. Okay, we're here at the outdoor studio of the Chesapeake Today at Fitzy's Marina, home of some of the world's best crab cakes, interviewing County Commissioner John O'Connor, who is a candidate for sheriff of St. Mary's County. When we left off, we were talking about the Sheriff's Department, the budget, and the offices and so forth. John, you, as a county commissioner, you and your board have a budget proposal that includes a $26 million designation for a new sheriff's headquarters over the next 3 years in various implements, with the first budget allotment for next year of over $700,000. Can you tell me what kind of process that you had that determined that you need a new sheriff's headquarters?
Yes, as county commissioners, we underwent a comprehensive space needs assessment for all of county government, to include the Sheriff's Department and the State's Attorney's Office. The results back from that was that basically the Sheriff's Department was bursting at the seams within the facility that they're currently using, which was originally supposed to be a temporary solution, land use and growth management as well, and the Treasurer's Office.
Who conducted that analysis?
The county staff conducted the analysis through the county administrator.
So the staff determined you needed. Did you ever ask the public? Did you have a public hearing on it?
No, we did not have a public hearing on the space needs assessment.
In the 90s, they had a space needs study that came up with a $23 million judicial palace, which got turned down by the county commissioners, and instead they expanded and revamped the existing courthouse. And at one of the public hearings on it, community activist and tax expert Vernon Gray asked one of the members, for Dean, if they took into consideration the ability of the taxpayers to pay for it. Since you didn't ask the taxpayers if they thought they could afford this, when will you do that?
I have no problem having a public hearing, and we do have public hearings on our capital improvement projects at every single budget work session or when we sign the budget. So we give the public the opportunity to comment on our entire capital improvement project, not only at the budget hearings that we have, but it also goes before the Planning Commission. So our entire plan is there, and the public has time to comment there as well. As far as specificity on that particular project, if that is something that came forward from the public and they wanted to have public comment period on that project, I'd be more than happy to have that.
Okay, well, you opted to have the staff come up with the idea of a $26 million facility. Why didn't you appoint a citizen committee to do that?
Well, in this instance, we have appointed citizens committees before, but what we did is we used the previous space needs assessment, the new one, and then we took information from the Sheriff's Department based on their needs assessment for the operations in the county, and we put that all together.
Well, you said that the Sheriff's Department was busting at the seams. Why didn't you just let them bust out in their patrol cars and go out and fight crime? Well, what do they need a new building to sit around in?
There is always that option, but what it comes down to is law enforcement, and at least from my perspective, regardless of what the needs were from the Sheriff's Department, is there's far advancing technologies that need to be incorporated into the day-to-day operations of the Sheriff's Department. Right now, there's no proper facility to process large vehicles for evidence or hold evidence appropriately. The facilities are not equipped with modern-day technology for interviews and recording interviews and capturing interviews. There's lots of small things that add up to big things in a modern police headquarters.
Under Sheriff Vohar, the Assistant Sheriff Steve Doolin was found to have released a tractor trailer load of evidence that had been held and property held to his stepson and to one of his pals, Stephen Cooper. That report given by the state prosecutor to the sheriff has never been released. If you're elected sheriff, will you release that report?
I want to expand access to open records. And if it's a closed investigation that is subject to release under the law, I will absolutely release it. Closed investigations usually are, and the subject matter that is there. Yeah, absolutely. The public, when it comes to investigations of that nature, I believe that the public needs to be informed, especially in any government.
Okay. Sheriff Zilak, when he first won, he tried to expand the ranks and command positions in the department, and basically was turned down. Sheriff Cameron did exactly that. Do you have any plans on expanding the command structure and, you know, having maybe a colonel or a general or anybody else?
No generals. What I do plan on doing is using my knowledge of district-based policing that is unfamiliar down here and applying that appropriately. Each district should have its own commander, and that commander is responsible for that area. So if that takes putting ranks that are supposed to be there for district-based policing, then I'm open to doing so, but it has to be needs-driven, and we have to get district-based policing up and running in order to facilitate that.
For the viewer and the reader that is not familiar with your military and police background, would you briefly describe that?
Sure. I served in the United States Army from 2000 to 2007 as a military police officer, service over in Kosovo and Iraq during... Good. All right. So let's talk about service in Iraq and as a military police officer. I also served stateside as undercover narcotics investigations, where I completed multiple undercover narcotics cases, felony cases. I served as a K-9 handler, served in the traffic unit, and as a military police sergeant. I love my time in the military, and I would definitely do it again if that time came up. As far as police, you know, I joined the police department with Prince George's County Police, and then ultimately, a short time after that, I ended up resigning, and then I moved on to smaller agencies in Prince George's County. The benefit to me on working with those smaller agencies was you get a different perspective on policing than you ever would by staying at one agency in particular. You pick up what not to do, what to do, and some of the best practices and also some of the worst practices. Fortunately for me, I've had the opportunity to work at these agencies, go to different agencies and advance my career, better pay, more rank, more supervision, and a larger population that I was policing with. And during those times, it was just amazing to see the ability to apply everything I learned in reducing crime, understanding district-based policing, understanding different cultures, and far getting more experience than you would if you just stayed at one agency your entire career, in my personal opinion and belief. I've had opportunities to write grants in upwards of $8 million that have helped the citizens and the police departments expand. The training that I have received by working with these agencies through the state and other organizations is unparamount. I've been trained by the New York City Police Department in undercover narcotics investigations. I'm a vehicular homicide investigator. I've attended UCR training or NIBRS training on criminal statistics, community-oriented policing training. And I've worked with so many different community groups that, for me, it just makes me very well-rounded, and I appreciate that time.
The current sheriff, Tim Cameron, has had dozens of people come and go as deputies. Can you tell us what you would do different to make this an attractive environment for people to stay rather than moving on because they don't fit into the Keystone Cops Club?
Yeah, so I've always said money is always one portion of the factor, but people don't leave the job just because of money. They leave management. That's ultimately what they leave. They seek other opportunities elsewhere because of management and lateral and upward movement. One thing I would do is absolutely 100% limit the workload that patrol has currently, because they have an extensive workload. They're not just patrol officers, but they're also detectives. And most people don't understand that the average patrol officer in St. Mary's County is handling the workload of detectives. Sometimes they can have 10, 15 open cases. So limiting that workload limits the stress on the officers and then provides them the ability to do actual police work, get back to the foundations of it, and have less stress when they come to work. A happy officer means less crime, means happy citizens at the same time. It's a trickle-down effect.
Given your own dealing with demons and the problems we've seen recently with a deputy in Calvert County, one arrested in January for DWI, one that just got off with just minor traffic charges after his DWI and killed a citizen, what will you do to implement more programs to give deputies a chance to get the help that they need if they're having alcohol problems?
I tell you, I actually truly appreciate that question because it's very personal to me. When I came back from the war, I was shot, hit with IEDs, I had facial reconstructive surgery. I lost 27 friends and family members in a very short period of time. And there really were no programs that were offered to go ahead and help. And that ultimately led to my DUI. And I've owned it and gotten better from there. And I have worked with so many different veterans groups telling that story since 2010, 2011, written articles about it that went out nationwide to tell officers that, listen, you got to ask for help. Agencies need to help. And that is going to be a primary goal for me. The stress of this job, and not only just now in modern policing, but in general, wears down, and often officers are told that they need to compartmentalize things. They need to just put it away in a box, go do your work, and go home. No, we need to get our officers help when they want it, help when they need it, and intervene early. Mental health is so paramount for our law enforcement and public safety that it should be something that the agency provides funding for, that is confidential between the officer and that mental health specialist, where they don't feel stigmatized because they need to go talk to somebody to alleviate the stress that comes with seeing what public safety personnel see on a daily basis. It's not something to joke about. And I'm not talking about what's mandated by the state, annual psychologicals. That's a formality that's been passed down by Annapolis. I'm talking about straight up intervention and employee well-being. Not just employee, but human beings. The people that put on these uniforms and badges and guns, when they take it off, and even when they're wearing it, they're just like everybody else. And they have to cope with everything they see, people in their worst moments. Listen, nobody dials 911 because they just want to say hello. And you take that all in, you need to get it out somewhere. And being at the bottom of a bottle, or being at the bottom of a pill bottle, or any other substance is not the way to be. I am going to make that a top priority, that officers, their family members can get together and do what they need to do for their own physical and mental health and their well-being.
Well, speaking of physical health, you going to do anything to get some of these deputies to help shed some pounds?
It's not so much shed
and you have
pounds.
top commanders running around here looking like, Laurel and Hardy.
Yes, physical fitness is very important. That came in the military, and I'm a firm believer in it. And I also think it shouldn't just have to be on your off time. There's programs throughout the entire United States that allow officers to work out. They pay them to work out, have incentives to stay in shape. It didn't need to be passed down from Annapolis. These are things that I've done in my agencies and worked with physical fitness, because that ties into mental health as well. If you're able to work out, it releases positive endorphins, you release the stress, and your physical well-being is better. Physical well-being also can help lead to less serious use of force, just in general.
Yeah, you don't need a taser to catch a shoplifter if you can just grab him by the back of the neck, I guess.
In some cases, yes.
Okay, what process do you have to keep that from happening again?
So I immediately realized what was going on, and I contacted the county attorney, and I said, this can't happen again this way. We need to have it set up where there's public input and process. So I requested that the Planning Commission immediately start work on a text amendment for any type of marijuana, agricultural, medical, doesn't matter what it is, and it will require a public hearing. So the Planning Commission, where it's supposed to happen, the Planning Commission makes those changes and then presents it to the commissioners. Work with all the state entities, bring it back so we can get this approved. So anytime a facility like this comes up, we will have a public hearing. There is no more arbitrary decision that's going to happen between agricultural, minor, or major, or industrial. No matter what, the public will be involved in this, and that process has started, and I hope to see it through and approved before my term is over as a county commissioner.
John, there's always been controversy surrounding disposition of surplus county property. Can you tell me your experience with it? What you've been doing, what the county's been doing to get rid of excess cars, and is there any kind of audit of the guns in the sheriff's department too over the last few years? Have you ever seen one?
I've never seen an audit on any of the firearms in the sheriff's department. As far as excess vehicles and/or county property, for the county side, we have a process in place that's delegated to the county administrator, and we keep very good records of all the property that has been surplused. In fact, I've helped multiple nonprofit agencies, entities, and law enforcement agencies, government entities throughout my time as a commissioner take surplus property from the county.
Do they pay for it?
No, because the taxpayers have already paid for it, and people here in this county still pay Maryland state taxes. So what point is there in taking property that the taxpayers already paid for, make them pay for it again in another jurisdiction? It's illogical. So rather than it going to auction, pennies on the dollar, and the county really not making anything of it, the citizens of this state deserve the right to use that property. And most vehicles have over 115,000 miles on it before we give it up. The cell phones, they work. Most of them go to domestic violence just to dial 911. And the computers, they're on their last leg in most times, and people got to do some upkeep on them. But I'm very proud that I've been able to help even agencies that I've worked with and for that have been on their last legs with vehicles.
The Sheriff's Department we were over there at the Sheriff's Department earlier today to start this interview, and they have like 20 vehicles out there parked in the grass. They've always got a fleet of vehicles, and then they got a bunch of junkers down and they run into things at Public Works. Does the Sheriff's Department have too many vehicles? And you say you get rid of them at 115,000. Lots of the public, like me, have got vehicles with 300,000 on them, and we're not parking with them. Why are you getting rid of them at 115,000?
So the biggest difference with the day-to-day driver is they're not rode hard and put away wet, so to speak. These vehicles are driven into the ground, even though they're well maintained. I mean, they're running all the time. They got hundreds of hours on the engines, the transmissions. They're really put through the paces. So when these pieces of property are given away, we're not giving away gems. It's just the way it is. They're sometimes on their last legs. They're holdovers until another government entity can get either some better equipment, new computers, make its way through a budget, or even vehicles just to get through and serve the citizens. So that's the biggest difference on that. And the Sheriff's Department does have a lot of vehicles sitting over there, but that can also be attributed to the vacancy rate at the same time that the Sheriff's Department sees in the turnover rate. The county does have a good policy on releasing vehicles. I think it does need to be revamped. I am a firm believer in that. But either way, why auction it off?
Okay. Fentanyl. Ever since the Biden administration came into office, they've opened the borders. Fentanyl is coming in from China through Mexico and working its way in throughout the United States, including St. Mary's County. Killing people. Overdoses are incredible because we have an open border. I know you can't close the border off, but what can you do to help keep the people in this community safe?
Well, one thing we can do is target the repeat offenders, find these drug dealers, put them out of business. And when I say put them out of business, I mean get them off the streets, put them in jail, and make sure that they're not creating more victims. When it comes to preventing somebody that's overdosing, it's continuing training our officers with naloxone, and also working with our EMS community and the public health community to go ahead and keep that awareness there, work it down. The biggest thing is the interdiction of it. I'm a firm believer everything starts with a traffic stop. I've gotten the most drugs, illegal firearms, and some of the worst criminals on a traffic stop. And that's lacking in this county right now. I mean, you can even look at the traffic fatalities. We had 62 traffic fatalities from 2017 to 2020, and a societal cost of $86 million to people, and that's just traffic fatalities, and that's not the untold loss of life. That's something that needs to be stepped up. Our deputies need to be able to actually get back to the core work of patrol. There needs to be a traffic enforcement unit that's actively going out and looking for these criminals that are transporting illegal drugs into this county and illegal guns, causing the shootings, the overdoses, and we need to put a stop to the trap houses that are out there selling drugs. That's what we need to do.
On the county budget, back again, you are running for sheriff, okay?
Yes.
So the budget is important to you as an incoming sheriff, if the voters choose you. As a county commissioner, the budget you're proposing right now, you're not maintaining the constant yield enough to keep from having a tax increase because of assessments going up. So as a Republican, on an all-Republican board, in this proposed budget, you're going to be raising taxes, is that correct?
The constant yield will be, yes, it will be. But at the same time,
it's not going to be, the constant yield won't be, you're not maintaining the constant yield. You're still going to have a tax increase.
Yes, there will be. Yes.
Okay. How can you justify that as a Republican and with all the money the county's taken in from COVID and everything else?
Well, the one thing that I pushed for was lowering the income tax and a balance on this, because I believe that putting money in people's pocket is better. I did not agree, and I voted against the tax increase from the income tax 2 years ago. I said we didn't need it. We needed to estimate the growth rate appropriately. And unfortunately, things are give and take. And I can't get other members of this board to estimate the growth appropriately for this county, which would make it so we didn't have to do that, or we didn't have to raise the income tax, like I said 2 years ago. But successfully, I was able to help negotiate lowering the income tax back and actually below where it was before. So that's the tricky balance, trying to get the will of the board.
Well, the budget you're looking at and having hearings right now, you still haven't actually voted on it yet.
No.
Okay, so you could still vote against the tax increase in this budget.
Yes.
As could your fellow commissioners, if they catch enough hell from the public. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm one for it when people come. I love it. It doesn't matter good, bad, indifferent. I love public forums, and I love hearing when people come out and help me make a decision. Whether it's on Facebook, inboxing me, public forums, text message, phone calls, in the store. I get it all.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to be asked in this interview?
No, I think you covered it all right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.